So far, we learned how to call a flow from inside Excel. Now we want to do it the other way around. So we want to call an Excel sheet from inside Power Automate. We want to have an Excel sheet that we can insert records, or we can delete items from the table, or we want to update existing items in the table. Let's start by adding a new row to a table. Before doing that, we need an Excel sheet. So I put a quick range here and I call it product, unit price, and finally category. And I would say product A, product B, product C, and product D. Unit price, I just put some random number, and category, I call it category A, B, A, and C. Doesn't matter. First thing we need to do, we need to convert it to a table. It is not possible to insert and delete and update items inside an Excel sheet if it's not part of the table. So we need to select this range and format as table, whatever the format. My table has header, and I want to make it a little bit cleaner. Click on the Design tab, and I change the table name, and I call it Products. Great. Now I need to save it. I click on File, Save As, and I click on Browse. I go to my SharePoint site. I click on Documents, and I just decide that I want to upload this file to this library. So let me just get the URL of this, copy, and I take it to Excel, paste, and I call it Update Test. And I click Save. Great. Now this file is stored in SharePoint. Let me just go to SharePoint and verify it. Refresh. And I have Update Test, which is the same Excel file that I just uploaded. I need to close this Excel on the desktop application. All good. So the first thing, we want to add row into a table. We go back to browser and I take it to flow.microsoft.com and I click on Create and I click on Instant Flow because I want to click on the button and trigger the flow. So I give it a name. I call it Test Insert Excel and create. Let's go back to the table that we had there. So if I click on Update Test, you will see I have product, I have unit price, and category. So basically, I want to add these three fields to the Power Automate. So it's going to be product, next one is going to be category, and finally I want to add a number and I want to use unit price. Okay, let me make it a little bit better looking, and that's it. So this flow should pick all these three items and insert them into this table, probably right after this product D. Let's get back here to our flow and I add a new step. This time again, I'm looking for Excel. You see the category here as Excel Online. If you don't see it, just search for Excel. And when I click on it, I can search for Add. So add a row into the table. If I click on it, now it's asking me where the row is. So I need to search for Power Automate Workshop. This is the site that I have the file on. Document library, I uploaded it to the documents. I need to pick up the file, which was Update Test. And the table that I want to use is going to be products. Now this time it has a proper name. As soon as I pick products, it says, okay, now give me the values. I click on the product and I need to get it from the trigger So if I scroll down here, I will find the product. Unit price, I can get it from the same place. Unit price, category, again, category from the trigger, and we're good to go. Let me just save it. And now we can test it and see what happens on the Excel side. Let me just click on Share Document. So I close this file and I go back to my Power Automate. Let's test it. I'll perform the trigger action, save and test, and I click on Continue. So I call it Product X. Category is going to be, for example, R, and unit price is going to be $1,000. I click on Run Flow, done, and it successfully completes. Come on, show me some results. Okay, great. Now let's go back to our Power Automate, update test, and I should see this product here. Not yet. Refresh, and I see the product X, $1,000, and the category is R. Great. So far, we added a row into the table. Let's see how we can delete a row from that table. So I go back to Power Automate again. And instead of adding the row into the table, I want to delete the row from the table. Let me just delete and get rid of it. I don't need to insert another one. I guess it's easy enough for you to understand. So I add another one. I would say use Excel Online again. And this time we want to delete. For delete, we have to be specific. We have to say which row we want to delete. If I go back here, I can say delete and delete a row. Location, just like before, I need to go to the Power Automate workshop website, documents. The file that I need to delete the record from is going to be update test, table, you got it, products. Key column is the important part. So basically, key column is going to decide which row is going to be deleted. Typically, when I go to the Excel, I usually have a unique ID for the table. And this is not a good thing because at the moment I have product that it looks like a unique list of products. But if there is a duplicate in the products, the delete does not really perform as it's supposed to do. It deletes just one row and skips the other one. And you think that, okay, it's gone, while you might have been deleted the wrong record. Fine. At the moment, let's assume that product uniqueness is guaranteed, but then I will tell you what to do and how to go over it. So let me go back to my Power Automate. So the key column is going to be the product, and I want to get the product to be deleted from the trigger. So basically, when I go to the trigger, I don't need this one anymore. I don't need unit price anymore. User can enter the product name, and then it should go and find that product in the Excel sheet and delete it. Great. So I am searching for a product in this site. File is already in the documents library. The file name is update test. Inside that file, I'm looking for products table, and I'm looking for a row in products table that the product name is coming from this trigger. So if I scroll down here, I can find a product that comes from trigger. Fantastic. Let me just save it and give it a shot and see if it works. Let's delete PRDD, for example. Let me just close this again. And we can run this. Save and test. And this time I have only one field. I call it PRDD. And I click on Run Flow. And done. Great. I'm not sure if it is done or not. All it says it was successful. But let me go back to SharePoint, open the file, and see if PRDD is deleted. Yes, it's gone. So our delete was successful. Let's give it another shot, and this time I want to run it for something that does not exist. So let me just test it, save and test, and this time I'm searching for ABC, and I click on Run Flow. Done, and it failed. So basically, if delete does not find the file, it fails. And you already know how to handle this error. So if it fails, you can have another run condition and say, okay, if it fails, just report it or do something else instead. You already know how to take care of it. Before we go to update, I want to take care of this issue that I told you that we typically have about ID. So basically, if I go back to my SharePoint, I love to have a field that it's guaranteed to be unique. But we can always add another column here, and I call it ID, for example, and it automatically adds it to the table. And this ID, let's make it something like a unique number, 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on and so forth. And let's agree that every time we add another row to this table, we just make sure that ID stays a unique number. Great. Now, we have an extra field. We can go back to our Power Automate and work with it. So if I want to update or delete now, if I click on key column, you don't see the ID because it's already cached. So probably the only way is to save it, close it, and we reopen it again. So I click on Edit, Open, and the key column this time, I want to pick ID, and instead of using the product name, I want to go to my trigger and I say ID. So when I come back here, I can scroll down and I can pick ID from the input. Great. So I have manually trigger a flow that accepts the ID, and now ID is unique. So let's say test it for the delete because we are using the same ID for the update. Test, I'll perform trigger action, test, and I want to delete the product with ID 2. But before I run it, let me make sure that 2 exists here. So ID 2 is already there. Great. Let's go back to my Power Automate, run flow, done. And let's see if it completes. Great. If it is successful, now we know that it found the record. Let's go back to our Excel sheet. Product 2 does not exist anymore. Great. So we learned how to insert. We learned how to delete. Last piece is to do the update on a row. I guess I really don't need to do that, but you know what? Who cares? Let's do it. Let's go back to our Excel sheet, and I want to update the category of product C to category X, for example. Great. So to do that, I can come here. I go to delete. I really don't need this delete anymore. I add a new step, again under Excel, and this time I search for update. Update a row. Just like before, location is the same SharePoint site. Document library is going to be the same document library. File, we pick up exactly the same file, update test. And table is going to be exactly the same table, products. Key column, now we have a legit key column, which is ID. ID is coming from the trigger. So the key value is the ID that I have from there. And remember, we just wanted to update the category. So I add another input, text, and I call it category. So this trigger, when fired, it looks for a product with the ID that is entered by the trigger. And this ID in our example is going to be 3 because we are looking for product C update. I go back here and I just need to update the category. And that category is coming from trigger again. The other fields, if you just leave it blank, it skips it. Fantastic. Save, and let's give it a shot. If I click on test, save and test. Okay, the ID that we have here is going to be the ID for this product. The ID is 3. And the category, I want to convert it to category X. See, the initial category was category A. It should turn into X after I run this flow. So let me go back here, run flow, done, successfully completed. And I go back here and you see the category is updated to X. Again, if you have more than one ID for the specific update request, it updates only the first one and it skips the rest, which is important. So just make sure if you want to work with an ID, it's a unique ID. There is another way that you can add a unique ID yourself from inside Microsoft Flow, but I'm not going to go there in a beginner course. And so far, we are done with insert, delete, and update into the Excel. Now, let's see how we can make the changes in a range if we don't have the table. Spoiler alert, you're going to make your own table.